Clara rushed into Adrian's room, her pulse racing as the boy's weak cries pierced the silence of the house. The sight before her made her freeze. Adrian lay on his bed, his small body drenched in sweat, his face flushed crimson. His little hands clutched the bedsheets, and his chest heaved with shallow, rapid breaths. "Adrian," she whispered, her voice trembling as she hurried to his side. She placed a hand on his forehead and immediately recoiled. He was burning up, his temperature was dangerously high. Clara's mind raced. Mr. Taylor wasn't home. He was away on one of his endless business trips, leaving her as the sole caretaker. She had no way to contact him, and Adrian's condition was worsening by the second. She grabbed the thermometer from the nightstand, fumbling with it as her hands shook. 104 degrees, she murmured in disbelief. Fear gripped her chest. "I have to act fast." She rushed to the bathroom, filling a basin with cold water and grabbing a clean towel. Memories of her brother Lucas's fever surfaced as she worked. How she had desperately tried to save him, how powerless she had felt. This time, she vowed, she wouldn't let history repeat itself. Returning to Adrian, she gently placed the cold compress on his forehead. His body flinched at the touch, a weak whimper escaping his lips. "Stay with me, sweetheart," she said, her voice breaking. "You're going to be okay. Promise." Meanwhile, miles away, Mr. Taylor sat in a luxury airport lounge, staring blankly at his laptop screen. The canceled meeting had been a blow to his meticulously planned schedule, and frustration gnawed at him. His assistant had suggested he head home early, but he'd brushed off the idea. "There's always work to do," he had said. Yet now, as he sat alone, an uneasy feeling crept over him. He checked his phone, scrolling through messages, but there was nothing from Clara. He shrugged it off, convincing himself that no news was good news. By the time his delayed flight finally took off, the unease had grown into a gnawing sense of dread. Back at the house, Clara fought to keep Adrian stable. The fever spiked again, and the boy's trembling intensified. Panic clawed at her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She replaced the compresses, murmuring soft reassurances as she worked. "Come on, Adrian," she said, her voice firm despite her fear. "You're stronger than this." She stayed by his side through the night, her exhaustion mounting with each passing hour. Memories of her brother haunted her, but she pushed them aside, focusing entirely on Adrian. Failure wasn't an option. When Mr. Taylor finally arrived home in the early hours of the morning, the house was eerily quiet. His calls for Adrian went unanswered, and a sense of dread settled over him as he climbed the stairs. Pushing open Adrian's door, he froze at the sight before him. Clara sat beside the bed, her face pale and drawn, holding a damp cloth to Adrian's forehead. The boy's small form looked fragile under the covers, his breathing still shallow but steadier than before. "What happened?" Mr. Taylor demanded, his voice breaking as he rushed to his son's side. "What happened?" Mr. Taylor demanded, his voice trembling as he knelt beside Adrian. His son looked so fragile, his pale skin and shallow breaths tearing at his heart. "Clara, what's going on?" Clara stood, exhausted but composed. "Adrian developed a high fever last night, Mr. Taylor," she explained. "It was bad, dangerously high. I couldn't reach you, so I did everything I could to stabilize him." Mr. Taylor's gaze darted between Adrian and Clara. The weight of her words hit him hard. He had been away, prioritizing business, while Clara had been here fighting to save his son. The realization filled him with guilt and gratitude. What have you done so far?" he asked, his voice softening. "I used cold compresses, monitored his temperature, and kept him hydrated," Clara replied. "The fever broke an hour ago, but he's still weak. I called the family doctor. He'll be here soon." Mr. Taylor's chest tightened. "Thank you, Clara. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't have to," she said simply, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Adrian is like family to me. I couldn't let anything happen to him." Dr. Reynolds arrived shortly after sunrise, carrying his medical bag and an air of calm authority. He examined Adrian thoroughly, checking his vitals, hydration levels, and overall condition. As the hours dragged on, Clara's exhaustion deepened. She had spent the last 6 hours battling Adrian's fever, replacing compresses, and trying to coax small sips of water past his parched lips. Every time she thought the fever might break, it surged back with a vengeance. The room felt suffocating, the air heavy with the smell of sweat and the faint tang of antiseptic. Clara opened the window slightly, letting in the cool night breeze. She hoped it would help Adrian breathe easier. His small body trembled with each shallow breath, and her fear mounted with every passing moment. Her thoughts turned to Mr. Taylor. She tried calling his phone earlier, but it had gone straight to voicemail. She'd left a message, her voice trembling as she explained Adrian's condition, but there had been no response. She cursed his business trip under her breath. "This isn't something you can fix with a meeting or a deal, Mr. Taylor," she murmured to herself, her tone bitter. "Your son needs you." Adrian whimpered softly, pulling her attention back to him. She knelt by his bedside, brushing a damp strand of hair from his forehead. "I'm here, sweetheart," she whispered. "You're not alone." Miles away, Mr. Taylor sat on the plane, his eyes closed but his mind restless. He had an odd feeling he couldn't shake, a gnawing sense of unease that had been with him since he'd left home. Normally, he thrived on business trips. The negotiations, the power plays, the deals, they gave him purpose. But this trip felt different. His mind kept wandering back to Adrian. He thought about the way his son had clung to him when he'd left, his small hands gripping his father's suit jacket. "Do you have to go, Daddy?" Adrian had asked, his big brown eyes filled with sadness. "I'll be back before you know it, buddy," Mr. Taylor had replied, ruffling Adrian's hair. "Be good for Clara." Adrian had nodded, but there had been something in his expression, something Mr. Taylor couldn't quite place. Now, sitting thousands of feet in the air, he regretted brushing it off. The plane landed, and Mr. Taylor's phone buzzed with missed messages and emails. He glanced through them, his chest tightening when he saw Clara's voicemail. "Mr. Taylor, it's Clara. Adrian's very sick. He has a high fever, and I'm doing everything I can to bring it down. But please call me back as soon as you can." His stomach dropped. Adrian was sick? How sick? Why hadn't he checked his phone earlier? Panic surged through him as he dialed Clara's number, but it went unanswered. "I'm coming home," he muttered, grabbing his suitcase and heading straight for the airport. By the time Mr. Taylor arrived home, it was nearly dawn. The house was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt oppressive rather than peaceful. He dropped his suitcase by the door and called out, "Adrian? Clara?" No response. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached Adrian's room, he froze. Clara was sitting beside the bed, her head bowed, her hands clutching a damp cloth. Adrian lay motionless under the covers, his small face pale but peaceful. "What happened?" Mr. Taylor demanded, his voice breaking as he stepped into the room. Clara looked up, startled by his sudden arrival. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face etched with exhaustion. "Mr. Taylor," she said softly, standing. "Adrian had a dangerously high fever. It broke about an hour ago, but it was a long night." Mr. Taylor rushed to his son's side, his hands trembling as he touched Adrian's forehead. It was cooler now, the fiery heat replaced by a faint warmth. Relief flooded him, but it was quickly followed by guilt. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" he asked, his voice cracking. "I should have been here." Clara hesitated, her gaze steady but weary. "I tried calling, but I couldn't reach you. I didn't want to wait for an ambulance. I was afraid he wouldn't make it. I did everything I could." Mr. Taylor looked at her, his emotions a tumultuous mix of gratitude and self-reproach. "You saved him," he whispered. "Clara, I don't know how to thank you." Clara shook her head. "There's no need to thank me. Adrian means a lot to me. I couldn't let anything happen to him." After Dr. Reynolds left later that morning, Mr. Taylor found Clara in the kitchen, tidying up the remnants of the night's ordeal. She moved slowly, her exhaustion evident in the way her shoulders slumped. "Clara," he said, his tone softer than usual, Can we talk for a minute? She turned, surprised. Of course, Mr. Taylor. He gestured for her to sit, and they both took seats at the small kitchen table. For a moment he was silent, unsure how to start. You were incredible last night, he finally said. I didn't realize how much you've done for this family. I feel like I don't know enough about you. Clara hesitated, her fingers brushing the edge of the table. There's not much to tell, she said quietly. I grew up in a small village. My parents worked hard, but we didn't have much. My younger brother, Lucas, was everything to me. Her voice faltered, and Mr. Taylor leaned forward. What happened to him? He asked gently. Clara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. He got sick when he was 7. We didn't have a doctor nearby, and by the time we reached help, it was too late. I tried to save him, but couldn't. The pain in her voice was palpable, and Mr. Taylor felt a pang of regret for never asking about her life before. I'm so sorry, Clara, he said. I can't imagine how hard that must have been. She nodded, her gaze distant. That's why I couldn't let anything happen to Adrian. When I saw him like that, it brought everything back. I couldn't lose him too. The next few days were a delicate balancing act for Clara and Mr. Taylor. Adrian's fever had broken, but he was still weak, his small body recovering from the battle it had fought. Clara stayed by his side every waking moment, her attention unwavering. She brought him small bowls of soup, gently coaxing him to eat, and ensured he drank enough water to stay hydrated. Mr. Taylor, uncharacteristically, took time off work. He couldn't bring himself to leave Adrian again, not after what had happened. He sat by his son's bed, reading him stories or simply holding his hand as Adrian drifted in and out of sleep. One evening, as the sun cast a warm glow across the room, Adrian stirred. His eyes fluttered open, and he looked up at his father and Clara with a weak but grateful smile. Thank you for taking care of me, he said softly. Clara leaned forward, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. You're welcome, sweetheart. You're such a brave boy. Mr. Taylor's throat tightened as he watched the interaction. How are you feeling, buddy? He asked. Better, Adrian replied, his voice still faint. But I don't want you to leave again, Dad. The words hit Mr. Taylor like a freight train. He took a deep breath, guilt and resolve intertwining in his chest. I'm not going anywhere, he promised. Not anymore. As Adrian recovered, he grew even closer to Clara. The bond between them deepened in ways Mr. Taylor hadn't noticed before. Adrian would light up whenever Clara entered the room, and he clung to her warmth and gentle presence. One afternoon, while Clara helped Adrian piece together a puzzle, he asked, Clara, do you have kids? The question caught her off guard, and for a moment, she didn't know how to respond. No, sweetheart, I don't, she said finally, her voice soft. Why not? Adrian asked innocently. Clara hesitated, her heart aching with the weight of memories. It just didn't happen, she said gently. But I think of you as very special to me. You're like family. Adrian beamed, his little hands reaching for hers. I think you're family too. Late one night, after Adrian had fallen asleep, Mr. Taylor found himself in the living room, staring at an old photo of him and his late wife holding Adrian as a baby. The house had been filled with love and laughter back then. But after his wife's passing, he had thrown himself into work, convincing himself that providing financially was the best way to honor her memory. He hadn't realized how much he'd neglected the emotional needs of his son, or his own. As he gazed at the photo, his mind wandered to Clara. She had stepped into their lives quietly, unassumingly, but her impact had been profound. She had filled a void he hadn't even recognized, providing Adrian with the love and care he desperately needed. Mr. Taylor resolved to change. His son's close call had been a wake-up call he couldn't ignore. He would become the father Adrian deserved. Over dinner one evening, Clara opened up further about her past. It had taken a little coaxing from Mr. Taylor, but she finally shared the full story of her childhood. I grew up in a small, close-knit village, she began, her voice tinged with nostalgia. We didn't have much, but we had each other. My brother Lucas and I were inseparable. He was my best friend, Her expression darkened as she continued. When Lucas got sick, I did everything I could to take care of him. My parents were frantic, but we didn't have access to a doctor. By the time we got him help, it was too late. Clara's voice broke, and she looked down at her hands. I felt like I failed him. That's why, when I saw Adrian so sick, I couldn't let it happen again. I couldn't lose him too. Mr. Taylor reached across the table, placing a hand on hers. You didn't fail Lucas, Clara. And you didn't just save Adrian, you saved me too. I'll never forget what you did for us. A week after Adrian had fully recovered, Mr. Taylor called Clara into the living room. Adrian was seated beside him, holding a small, beautifully wrapped box. What's this? Clara asked, her eyes wide with surprise. It's a thank you, Mr. Taylor said. From both of us. Adrian grinned and handed her the box. Open it, Clara. Inside was a delicate gold locket. When Clara opened it, she found a photo of Adrian on one side and an inscription on the other. To Clara, with love, for being our angel. Clara's breath hitched, and tears welled in her eyes. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Mr. Taylor said. You're more than just an employee to us, Clara. Your family. Adrian leaned into her side, wrapping his small arms around her. We love you, Clara, he said simply. Clara hugged him tightly, her tears spilling over. I love you too, Adrian. The events of that fateful night became a turning point for the family. Mr. Taylor began spending more time at home, prioritizing his son over his work. He learned to cook Adrian's favorite meals, helped him with homework, and even joined him and Clara for movie nights. As for Clara, her role in their lives transformed. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a cherished part of the family, someone they depended on and valued deeply. Years later, as Adrian grew older, he often looked back on that night as a defining moment. It was the night his family truly came together, bound by love, gratitude, and the selfless care of one extraordinary woman. And though life moved forward, none of them ever forgot the night that changed everything.